So, hello all. We are live, and I'm going. There we go. Okay. So, welcome to Saturday afternoon for Pacific time. For everyone else, welcome to. Oh, gonna have to dock you for that. Uh, look, I uh, uh Good God, YTT. I did not realize I was that popular, so I appreciate that. And I know I'm looking at my screen, so I know I don't have the full screen up with my stuff here. So I'm working on a two camera system, so that I can show the camera rolls as we go because I don't trust computers to give me a properly random roll. So I figure I have no one to blame but myself if my dice roll like ass. Um, I have several sets of dice here. I will be moving them around and in and out of circulation if I start getting like four negatives, for instance. Um, so yeah, thank you YTT. I appreciate that. I also was trying to find ID. So just as asinine as I am and want to make everything perfect, I spent more time than probably somebody else would have looked at to figure out what looks nice in terms of standing out on the camera. So if I roll, say, with these dice, are you going to be able to see them versus, something like this dice, which are kind of hard to discern with the colors and the washing out of the GoPro webcam. I'm actually using I actually have a couple of these. So I have a GoPro 8 that I'm using for this, which you see here, the jankiness, hooked up through a USB-C cable, being used as a webcam. Um, Incidentally, I plan on trying to use these at our InfoSec campout. And if you're here looking for security stuff, modern CMOS sensor cameras are most sensitive in green. Well, there you go. That's why I found out that these are probably the best in terms of that. Um, I have other colors as well. I have like a blue on a white. I also have like a seafoam color. It does appear that the ones closer to green actually look better on camera. So you are absolutely correct, YTT. Uh, so those of you who normally come to this stream looking for security content, you're not going to find that today, not at least on this stream. Appreciate that. Yeah, you absolutely right, YTT. That would be why these orange ones. If the orange ones had a white band on them instead of, ooh, okay, then they might have shown up a little better on the camera. So, but yeah, I'm going to keep them here, and like I said, if I start rolling like ass, I will rotate them out. Actually, I think these were the worst, the ones that were kind of silver with blue. No, the silver and the blue ones aren't bad. Um, so I'm going to click over to our main to kind of show you what I've been doing here. So what you see here is a VS Code. I finally figured out how to fix purple nail polish on the orange dice. You know what? My daughter might have some purple that would work for that. Yeah. I've had these for years. I actually helped kickstart Evil Hat back in the day, and one of the few physical things I actually get in Kickstarter stuff is dice. I'm a dice whore. I have, you know, this is just my small bag. This is my small bag of dice. Um, and I've got some, everybody went through their semi-precious silver metallic, but the purple will have a good contrast. Oh, that's a good thought. Yeah. Um, I have a few things up here on the sheet here. What you see the VS Code. I have a markdown sheet because one of the things that I learned for the solo role play is that you need to take notes because invariably there's no one else here to remind you or not remind you of things that happened unless YTT wants to join on a session in some near future, or I have maybe a guest who runs an NPC or something like that. So I did also something that I normally don't do with any of my streams. I have somewhat of a list of things to do. Um, I'm using just VS Code Insiders here. This is going to go into my GitHub, which I was spent all week trying to figure out why I could not use my original folders for GitHub. Come to find out, I was I had a local folder and I was trying to sync it up to a GitHub repo that didn't exist, and it kept telling me some kind of weird error message. And basically, what came out from was, you need to tell me what folder or what the name of this new branch is going to be. And I was like, I'm not a developer. I don't know that kind of shit. I just want to be able to, save and sync, that kind of thing. So once I went to GitHub and said, hey, just pull this stuff down and sync it locally to my box, then I was able to make changes. So you know I'm not good with GitHub. I never, I'm not a developer. So and as you can hear, I'm about to crack a cold one. So please feel free to indulge yourself in whatever beverages you enjoy. Right now I am drinking hipster water, Soleil, pineapple. So um, if you ever listen to the podcast, we don't, ask everybody what they're drinking. We're not drinking old fashions and, whiskeys and Cokes and whatever. Mostly it's water or hipster water, which is what I've started enjoying. So, welcome to whatever it is you want to drink. And the pineapple's not bad. I actually like LaCroix's Limoncello, which has almost, I don't know how they do it, but it tastes more lemony than the regular lemon one. So, but I digress. So, trying to slow my breathing down here a little bit because I'm really nervous about doing these kinds of things that aren't InfoSec related. I decided not to do all of the transhumanist fate stuff. I'm on a no weird chem. Okay, sun brewed. I love sun brewed iced tea. YTT. I used to do that quite a bit. The funny thing is we actually do have sun today, so I could have sun tea, but they don't have shade brewed iced tea up here in the Pacific Northwest, or it would take forever to do so. So, just to give some people some background on Traveler. Traveler, the original version of it, is actually older than I am. It was a science, and it actually came out around the same time as the original Dungeons and Dragons, 1977. So for those of you watching this, YTT, she wasn't even born when this came out yet. So young punks out there, just enjoying RPGs and stuff. So Traveler, it's a science fiction role playing game. At the time, it was the only sci-fi, or one of the only sci-fi role playing. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. YTT, it's all right. It's all good. So, 1977, Games Designers Workshop. They are better known for, I wouldn't say better known, but they are most well known for their war game stuff. Some of the things they've come out with is not Twilight. Let me see. They came out with, let me see if there's anything that somebody else might know, but they've been around forever. I mean, some of their stuff goes all the way back to the early 70s. They were basically war gaming. So it's like, Napoleon, you recreating the Battle of Waterloo or something like that, and a bunch of miniatures, usually made of tin or what have you. No, YTT, you weren't working on your first degree. No, that's not possible. So they've got a ton of stuff, a lot, and of course, Traveler is one of those ones, kind of like RuneQuest, been around for a long time, bounced around to a number of different companies. Traveler has been licensed by GURPS, Steve Jackson Games. It's been managed by Mongoose most recently, just like actually kind of like just how RuneQuest was, except RuneQuest started out with Chaosium. Mongoose did a version of it. Games Workshop has done a number of various things here. So these are war games. I want to say they did like Warhammer too, but I could be wrong. Maybe they didn't do Warhammer. Um, so there's a number of things. They also have various versions and flavors of Traveller. They have Traveller 2300, which is a hard science fiction role playing game. They have a whole, the Traveller and like RuneQuest and all of those ones back in the day followed a specific timeline, right? So Traveller has the Imperium, which we won't necessarily be using. It's kind of using Traveller rules, but kind of set in that world. We're going to be working through some of the So they had rule sets for American Civil War, World War One, World War Two, and the modern era. Um, so they're many of their games are now carried by other publishers. So if we go back to Traveller, you can see some of the influences of it. Hammers, Slammers. So a lot of their books. Let me see. Key features of Traveller is commerce. It's a bit human centric. Limited communications right now. The way I wanted to run this was we don't have faster than light currently. Things could change depending on how the dice rolls happen. Morals and morality. People remain people, and they are there's good people, there's bad people, there's indifferent people, there's people who are capricious. The Han Solo types where they're out for themselves, but kind of the hooker with a heart of gold kind of stuff. And sociological interstellar society is stratified. So there are going to be the haves and the have-nots. There are going to be supracorps, which are mega corporations, but corporations transcend lines on a map, as they do now in our world. Google doesn't really it's going to get worse. Google doesn't really notice lines on a map. They understand countries. They don't understand per state necessarily unless they're forced to. But in the future, it's going to come down to, Earth or Mars or orbital habitats or, what have you. And I've, been looking up some sci-fi character names and some gadget names. I have a list of those. Let me see here. Megacorp names. So I was looking up some of these items. I actually used Archimedes and Co. Heavy industry. It's I'm basing it on various types of industries. So Archimedes and Co. would be like a builder or heavy building industry. So they build habitats. They build spaceships. Starships would be interstellar. Heavy construction, if you will. So orbital habitats are built by Archimedes. They also do some resource gathering, so mining in this case. They mine asteroids or what have you. There are a number of decent looking companies here. Gene Roddenberry said that warp existed so that it didn't take 40 years to cross a solar system. The universe would be too small for telling stories. That is correct. Before we get to Wagon Train and the Stars kind of thing, my friend Richard Arnold, he rests in peace, Trek historian, worked with the Great Bird and had said that things like the Wagon Train to the Stars was not legitimate, but he's absolutely correct about the, what you said there. You're absolutely correct about warp existing. I don't know how The Expanse made it work. Maybe it was the speed of plot, if you will. But yeah, I think The Expanse was more dependent on human interaction and what happened at that point than elsewhere. But and the fact that there's not faster than light communications kind of left the crew of the Rocinante and them to their own devices, right? They had to make their own decisions instead of one of the things that I always thought interesting about Star Trek was they'd wait, or like Captain Kirk would be like, "Oh, notify Starfleet Command, and I'm going to do this," and it's like, yeah, maybe you just make a decision and go, and then deal with the ramifications later. It feels like without faster than light communications, the whole dynamic of command and things kind of change, in my opinion. So people are more empowered to make those choices instead of, well, let's wait and see what headquarters says, and oh well, we probably should just wait, and then they're only spurred to action when bad things happen. So ideally, what I'd like to do until the roles make it possible, or we move in that direction, and when I say we, I mean our listeners, would be to we're going to be making decisions and then dealing with the ramifications later on. So all right. Yeah, so there's a bunch of interesting ones here, like Obadon Industry Energy. I thought about that one. Some of these are pretty cool. Definitely sounds very French here. Le Bongotemic International. So it was just a generator. So there's this website, sci-fi ideas.com, has a ton of generators for things. So so the setting for me, at least, is going to be humanist sci-fi with cyberpunk elements. Kind of like so one of the other things I was looking up was like cyberpunk wikis, fandoms. This is Cyberpunk 2077, kind of like Shadowrun, kind of a cross between Shadowrun and The Expanse in this case. So people will be able to augment themselves in certain ways. I was looking at some of the things that they have options here for augmentation. They I'm not, and obviously, if you go far enough, you're going to be just a brain in a body, with a bunch of technology underneath it. But there's definitely some stuff here where you could, boost your memory or do the Johnny Mnemonic thing and have a RAM upgrade. You just need to find a dolphin that can decrypt it for you. Oh, sorry, spoiler alert there. And so, there's other things. Actually, I need to bookmark that just in case. So yeah, there's a ton of things that I was thinking about doing with different ocular systems. In the future, I would imagine handicap, people with loss of limb or damage to their bodies would have the option. They don't necessarily have to have the option of replacing uh, you know things that have happened. I'm trying to be sensitive of that. So if you've been in a battle or there's an accident and you are you lose an eye or something like that, there is an option available for you to get a new eye. Even on Star Trek in the 23rd century, they had Geordi had his visor for the longest time, and I think even in season 1, they were like, "Well, why don't you go in and get new implants?" And he was, I don't know if he didn't want to, but reconstructive augmentation. There you go. Exactly. Yeah, YTT, absolutely right. Reconstructive augmentation. There may also be people in our setting that maybe can't afford it, or they're on, like I said, the haves and the have-nots. There may be folks that are not under contract with a supercorp that can't get that, or there may be a black market for augmentation technology. You may have a company that's making secret super soldiers, and you've got adrenaline boosters which are going to cause them to not feel damage, or take less damage, or take there's different reasons or ways to make that happen. But that it's kind of the grittier feel of Babylon 5. There were definitely haves and have-nots on Babylon 5. We unlike Star Trek, we did not fix, um, everybody is still working their normal shifts, and they're still rich and not rich people, or middle class. So let me see. Oh, this was a good site. One of our other listeners or watchers actually mentioned that one too. It is a generic. So Traveler is a generic universal RPG system. It can be used to simulate almost everything. It is near fanatically nonconformist, some often cranky Grognard fans. So that's pretty cool. Um, but there are very, very new versions of Traveler. The versions came out, let me see. Yeah, so the latest version from Mongoose came out in 2022 by Mongoose Publishing. Far Future Enterprises also has done a version. Mongoose has done the first and second editions, and then they just updated second edition in 2022. Steve Jackson, I have the Interstellar Wars PDF because, of course, I do. I also have the GURPS Traveler stuff. I've also bought a number of found. I have also found on DriveThruRPG the classic Traveler Black books. That was kind of interesting. The original books came like this, and they were really tiny, and they came in a black box. And of course, as you can see, the box did not stand up to um, being crushed or something happening like that. But each one of them is tiny. And this version was back when is like when you were DMing something and the players were not allowed to look at the dungeon master's guide or some shit like that. And but yeah, it's kind of interesting to see these. These would definitely fetch a pretty penny on the market for folks. Yeah, yeah, I love that. And so the other thing about Traveler is there are alien races, which again, depending on the roles, we'll find them eventually. Assuming we're going to, I, I'm hope I'm hoping this will last longer than a couple sessions, and we'll be able to get people online here. This is my character sheet, so I went back. The transhumanist character sheet didn't make a lot of sense when I was looking through trying to make things happen. So what I did was I took the character sheets from the previous game that we attempted to start. Wimmery, who streams, Scott Pack, and others, who's one of our moderators. We got to like session 2 or 3 on that, I think, and then it just kind of fell apart, unfortunately. But that is what happens when you have families and time that people it happens. So anyway, so I have the name. I kept the name, so Napari Sela or Sela, Napari Sela. It's okay, YTT. Take your time. Take your time. You've got tons of other stuff that you're working on, and like I said, if we'll be, I'll be able to hopefully entertain more people. And I don't want to do this every week, but ideally, I'm just trying to get this started, couple, 3, 4 sessions, and then we can work on a regular every 2 weeks or every week, every 2, 3 weeks or something like that for longer. So I kept some aspects of this, and this character sheet I can make it available for people to view if they'd like, and then it'll be updated on the reg. So I have some links in here to the Fate SRD for Fate Core on making good aspects and types of aspects. As you can see here, Fate does a really good job of documenting things on their site, which is why I liked Fate. It's free. It's very low barrier to entry. It's not like you're going to have to go to DriveThruRPG. You can go to DriveThruRPG and get a PDF, but the SRDs that are available, this system requirements doc, something like that, is all here. Everything that you would buy on the pay as you go or pay what you want on DriveThruRPG is here, including Fate Core, Fate Condensed, Fate Accelerated, which are 3 different ways you can play Fate. Fate Accelerated is how you do something, whether it be flashy, quirky, cool. There may be a cool option there. Condensed is like the newer version, so it takes like the 300 pages of Fate Core and then condenses it down into like 50 pages. So, again, as part of kickstarting Fate, this is the original Fate Core system that you would get when you look at the SRD for this. Yeah, so as you can see, I have old and new, and I have the Mindjammer stuff as well. So I'm a Kickstarter whore, like I said, in a good way, not a bad way. I like supporting folks. So reviewing settings. So we'll also have Supracorps. We'll have rich, middle, and poor. We'll have governments. Only because governments, in terms of law and lawlessness, right? Um, I think governments in the future with the super corps, government's going to be an interesting concept. I think in the future when the Microsofts or the Googles or the Amazons of the world are pretty much a country into themselves, and for all intents and purposes, they are now. They only kowtow to the government because they have to operate in on Earth in boundaries. I think once space becomes more colonized, and you know the Microsofts or the Googles of the world can start setting up their own habitats, or what have you in space. Once that happens, don't I think the idea of what we consider government to go complete, pear shaped. I think there'll still be a need for governments, but it's going to be more along the lines of like Department of Transportation or something. Somebody's going to have to manage that stuff in some way. So um, that's just my opinion. If you don't agree with that, you think it's wrong, we won't know because I'll be dead by the time all this stuff comes to pass. Mm. The year, I'm going to say the year that we're going to start this in would be 2142. Only because 21 times 2 is 42. There you go. 2142. Um, I'm going to assume that there is some reason why we've gone into space other than it's got really. I want to assume that we've gone into space for a positive reason and not because we've completely borked the ecosystem of Earth and it's left us no choice. The transhumanist fate version was very much like we trash the Earth with microbes and it's completely unlivable and nobody lives there now. And there's other RPGs that I looked at with that regarding that. There was one called Terracide, which the Earth was completely destroyed, as a matter of fact. Terracide RPG. Oh, they have a video game for it too. Interesting. Terracide RPG. Yeah, High Rock Press. There it is. Of course, I bought it because like I said, I am that way. The attack had been a long time coming. It traveled 200 years before it hit. Thousands of relativistic weapons swept across the system in a matter of hours, moving too swiftly for anyone to see them coming. Trying to escape or warn everyone about what was happening. Struck homeworld. Surface of Terra was a molten holocaust. The oceans boiled away into tortured skies. Every settlement on Luna, Mars, and the Galilean moons met the same fate. Colonies on smaller moons and asteroids simply shattered, vaporized instantly by the impact. In the hours of the attack, the fringe of Sol's Oort cloud in the last comet herders were just beginning to figure out something was wrong as they went off the air one by one, and then it was over. There were no survivors. So this is a gritty space opera noir. Earth has been annihilated, leaving only a few thousand humans who are working in deep space. Those who survived not only continue the human race, but to discover who or what destroyed their homeworld. Players can choose from character packet. So it runs on Hero 6th Edition, which Hero 6th Edition is based on basic role playing, which was based on RuneQuest. It all builds upon one another, which is a D100 based system. So you roll 2 die 10. There's, basically, if you know how to play RuneQuest, you can play Hero 6th Edition. But anyway, so there are several RPGs out there where Earth has been completely ruined. And I tend to like the idea that maybe we figured out what the fuck we are doing and assuming a positive need to go into space. Maybe not the reason everybody goes into space, but maybe we started mining asteroids. Maybe that the asteroid mining company actually, came to be, and we decided to create Space Elevator and come into space. 2142 is really close to when First Contact Day happened, I think, on Star Trek. So it makes a lot of sense. Of course, they were just coming out of the Third World War, so according to the Star Trek timeline. So assuming positive reasons to head into space. I'm assuming we did not have a World War III, but we can fill that in, and you can help. You can help do that. You being you, the watchers. By one of the things that I had looked at here was I have other aspects which I have not filled in on purpose. Um, in order to ask, and to make this more of a collaborative thing for everybody, if we have any subscribers who subscribe during the streams, I also have one down here for a stunt as well. Um, if you subscribe, then you can prescribe an aspect to me. Or, if we end up having more players or more people who join, uh, potentially more subscribers will be able to affect the outcome of the game for a positive or negative. So I'm still working on the bits kind of thing for that. But what I was figuring was like 100 bits would be you add a +2 to a roll, um, kind of like an update or a fate point. For instance, like I have normally fate gives you 3 fate points per session. So if I use all of my fate points, I don't get any more unless I um, work the high concept or my trouble or my relationship, the aspects or the stunts. Compel if I compel them or by some way of either overcoming, defending, creating an advantage, using those. So one of the things I wanted to do here, number 4 and 5, was to run a combat encounter or a social encounter just to test out how things are going to work with the Oracle, which is located here. So this is the Oracle. Bingo. Whoa, Oracle. So there are. So this is how we work it out. So what would happen is, they said the final piece of the puzzle for the Oracle is likelihood. So you would. The idea is I'll ask a question, determine the likelihood, or let somebody else determine the likelihood. So if YTT's, if I'm like, well, okay, so you know, there, the battle is going on. I'm running towards, the engine room. Do I make it to the engine room? And YTT may be like, oh, here's 100 bits. No, you just get hit by a ship or something like that. Or the 100 bits and it's going to be difficult. So I'm like, okay, difficult would be like a -3. So it's going to take a -3. It's going to be terrible. Or it's going to be really bad to get to. So I need to overcome. So I would roll the dice and I would say, oh, okay, so -2. So as I'm running towards the engineering room, the ship is rocked by a hit from a missile or something like that, and we'll work through that um, and work through those issues as we see fit. So um, the the solo fate that I got from Parts Per Million also has these things called the seers, which use these weird um, uh, um, icons, which are supposed to be not specific to any setting. So, like, a wolf or a werewolf or something may be a terror, or it could be a adversary that is constantly tracking you. You feel followed or what have you. The person attempting to lift a weight might be a something to overcome. Might be that's the way that it almost reads like tarot cards or something, and you get the squiggly line, which represents, I don't know, the bending of space time, or maybe it's an insignia of my enemy or a rival corporation. Ideally, there's a bunch of these things. So um, I I'm not sold on them yet, but it does talk about the seer track, and then they have dice at the bottom here. They've turned some of these icons into dice where you could put them on like a 6-sided die and use those. So if you roll, I think these are supposed to be like story dice. So if you create, like you get an eyeball, the eyeballs, and they look like they're scared. So this might be a scary thing. Or, you might be heading, to a new world, which would be the planet here, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, we're going to play it by ear. If it may be something I try later on, but for now I'm trying to, do the KISS principle here to keep it simple. And but yeah, we'll be using this for the And what I'll probably do is just recreate this in a markup doc so that way I've got it always and I don't have to have yet another doc open for that. So, anywho, all right. So let's go back to my character. So, I am so originally when we were working the transhumanist stuff, one of my thoughts was to be a mechanic or an engineer. Actually, it should have been engineer. I put mechanic, but engineer on the Maybell. I was looking up various types of troubles that fate you can have. One of them, looking at character aspects, so relationships to people and organizations, problems, goals, issues the character's dealing with, like a price on their head, or where was it? Yeah, the king must die, or fear of heights, or something like that. I could have put in there for. Okay, the one thing that I don't like about editing this in Google Docs is you pick this up and then it'll like pull the sheet around. Wow, blank acrylic dye are cheap. Laser etch anything on them. Yeah. Oh, really? Interesting. Because, just one sec. So last year during InfoSec Campout 2021, I had thought about maybe doing a Fate game, and I bought a bunch of dice off of Amazon, and using a red and a green marker, or highlighter in this case, I made Fate dice for everybody. The idea being red is negative, green is positive, and the white would be 0. Then I realized, well, what if somebody is colorblind, red, green? So I also created some that had X's, squares, and minuses on them so that people could play if they are not, colorblind. So I was thinking about running some kind of RPG stuff during InfoSec Campout, and I have 25 pairs of dice. It's 100 dice, but yeah, laser etching, that would be interesting. 60 sides a minute, 15 for 60. That's pretty good. That might be interesting to make like custom dice for people. I've been trying to figure out some different stuff to do for the conference related items. 60 of them for $15. Maybe you could create Yahtzee dice or something. People would definitely use those. So, let me see. 2142 reasons for heading into space. There was something else I wanted to add here. Super Corpse, got that. Limited. Let me know away from here. I'll hook from up. Okay. Yeah, or if are you looking on Amazon? Because I was looking on Amazon for limited. Government is limited in scope. Oh, Alibaba, yeah. So the problem I have with Alibaba and actually doing physical Kickstarters and anything that comes from China, because a lot of printers who do Kickstarters are like, oh yeah, we've been talking to the Chinese company over there to do stuff, is delays. There's actually a worldwide paper shortage, which I bet a lot of people didn't know about. But every time I see, messages from some of the Kickstarter folks, they're like, oh, there's a shortage of this weight of paper. So I had to go to a heavier weight of paper. The problem is that makes the shipping costs more expensive, and I didn't plan for that. And well, if a laser would work too. Yeah, a laser etcher, that would be pretty cool. Okay. So for a lot of Kickstarters, I don't do physical Kickstarters. I don't pick the levels that require, when they say, oh, November 2022, we're going to have that physical thing in place. Because invariably, if they've never done a Kickstarter before, something will happen that they didn't plan for. like, oh, well, our stuff is sitting on the dock in Shanghai and we don't know when it's going to get here, or it's going to cost 8 times as much to ship to Australia and New Zealand from the US than we thought. And now we need to, spend a lot more money to make that happen. And I was like, I just want my fucking PDF in, itch.io or DriveThruRPG. And I'm just going to, sit back and schadenfreude people who are expecting, dice or, limited edition leatherback, you know, journals and all that junky stuff. And I was like, just give me my PDF and STFU, that kind of thing. So, um, okay. So anyway, relationship aspect. I expected that my character, because one of the things that we talked about with the transhumanist stuff back in the day was that we were a one of the backgrounds was that it was a um, uh, we were part of one of the original families that had colonized space. So I am a descendant of some of the first Martian colonists. I put that down here. And being in space for a long time, being a descendant of that, I assumed that somebody in my family would be a high-powered member of some organization or company. So um, I am the nibbling, which I actually found that's a new word, nibbling, because I was like, in the future, we're all a little nicer to one another. Nibbling is not a new term. It is a gender neutral term used to refer to a child of one's sibling as a replacement for niece or nephew. The word was thought to have been coined in the early 1950s, but relatively obscure for several decades before being revived in recent years. In recent years, for obviously because of um, the trans rights and being able to change pronouns and what have you, and making sure that people are more comfortable. So nibbling sounded like something that would be commonplace in the future. So use the term nibbling. That is not what I wanted. This is the one I wanted. So I am the nibbling, which would be a nephew or niece of Gosa Sella Flage, who is the CEO of Archimedes and Co. Heavy Industry. So, it would be I'm not a direct relative, but it would be like my last name is Sella, and they'd be like, "Oh, are you in relation to?" Yes, I am. Thank you. And in some cases, that may help with some of my stunts, because one of the stunts I put down here was because my family name is well known on Mars. I get a +2 to contacts when I'm on Mars or on other Archimedes and Co-owned facilities, and I set a limit of once per session for that. So, um, uh, conversely, if there's a rival company, maybe I'm on one of those stations and habitats or ships, and it's going to be a -2. I will compel. That will be a compel, because it'd be like, well, they know who you are, your last name, you're a direct competitor, so maybe they don't want to help you, so it'd be a -2 to contacts or to rapport or something like that because of who I'm related to. Um, Physical track, mental track didn't change much. The skills were a little different, going back to fake core versus transhumanism. So, transhumanist. So I kind of made do. Technology was still the same. I tried to keep everything in a rough pyramid. One at level 4, 2 at level 3. I did pick 4 level 2s and 4 level 1s. I originally had like 7 level 1s, and I was like, okay, I don't have all the cred and the reputation skills that the transhumanist did. Oh, by the way, yes. The other thing that bothered me that I couldn't really wrap my head around was we still use money. We still use money. Sadly, it's probably going to be virtual, some kind of credits. Number 9, we do have a almost like I don't want to call it a meta world, but we do have like a second verse, which is a, um, a virtual reality world. Reality world. And there are people who I no, You know what? Maybe that's part of the subscriber thing. Maybe there's a maybe somebody who subscribes can give us a major fact like yes, we're using Dogecoin or something in the future. So but yeah, I actually have Dogecoin and that makes me sad. I kind of feel that right here. So yeah, that makes me hurt a little bit there. YTT. Because I do have Dogecoin and I know I will never get that money back. So but that's all right. I didn't gamble a ton of money on my Lambos and what have you, so it is what it is. So all right, and um, so yeah, I have I'm pretty, I have athletics, I have a fight skill. Fight skill is going to be hand to hand. Weapons is going to be ranged weapons. If it's shipboard weapons, it's going to be more of an operate kind of thing. Obviously I'm fairly well at that because I am the engineer on the Maybell. What the Maybell is yet, I don't exactly know. It could be a transport, it could be a courier ship, it could be a warship, it could be. I haven't exactly figured that out yet, and that may be some questions that I will ask as part of the background questions. Piloting, obviously, as an engineer, maybe as the chief engineer of the Maybell. I'm maybe, I maybe have some flight experience. Maybe somebody will, put in my background in the past that I was a pilot or did something like that. Engineer on the Maybell. Piloting skill, resources, obviously being well known or having a nibbling that is the CEO of a large corporation. I do have access to some resources. Survival skill, I think, is probably pretty hardy. Somebody may see the survival skill as being pretty high, and decide maybe I was a space marine or something in the past, or what have you. Technology, obviously, being the engineer on the ship, I probably know a lot about different ship systems. So I kind of assumed that I'm not overly strong. So that might be something that I can work on in the future, but I don't get any additional physical or mental tracks for that. That only happens if my athletics or physique was actually, where's physique? Okay, that actually, oh, there's physique. Okay, so I'm nothing to sneeze at. I mean, maybe lithe and sinewy, but I'm not, I'm not beefy. So, let me see. So yeah, a gearhead. So one of my stunts was I said because I'm ship's engineer, I can use my technology skill when attempting to access computer systems. Uh, instead of operate or computer systems, operate computers or something like that, I would be using my technology skill. Because my family's well known on our, Mars, I already mentioned that one. +2 to contacts. I may be able to contact the director of security or the financial officer, maybe my auntie or something like that. Stronger and faster. So +2 to physique rolls when using a kinetic augmentation system once per session. So scrolling over here, I actually added another section because Fate has the ability to do what's called extras. In this case, it's gear, for instance, like specialized gear that isn't connected to you specifically. Now, in the transhumanist thing, it would have been like your different morphs or what have you that you had. In this respect, I have two things. I have an AI assistant by the name of Sil, SIL, uh, and then what's called the kinetic augmentation system, which is what YTT had said. Oh yes, it's augmentation. This would be like an Iron Man type suit, but pretty much like a knee brace. I'm imagining it to be kind of like a knee brace, kind of something like this with metal. So, oh, here, this is even better. All right, I'm thinking of it more along the lines of something to help augment your natural physique to make it easier for you to move with. And to enhance your strength, maybe some hydraulics or electrically controlled. Um, After reading the story about scientists creating some kind of fabric that can be used to generate electricity, I figured in the future it's going to be possible for us to have powered devices very much like this. And the idea is, I would, use this as a part of my onboard systems, and the idea would be, I have to lift 500 pounds or something like that, and this, obviously I can't lift 500 pounds, but this will allow me to do so. It's more like a full body system, and so we can work on some of the details on whether it needs to recharge or what have you, but the uh, clothing that you wear by moving generates electricity that can be stored, kind of like a still suit, um, um, and creates, the ability to power your electronic devices, my AI augmentation system, my wetware, if you will, and allow me to, survive limited fashion. So, um, so yeah, I can close that. Um, there are people. Singularity does exist, but does exist. So people can have backups. Right now, I would say, like most things, only the super rich people could have access to it. There are probably some people who have access to that, but even if it was a transhumanist thing like we were going to do, I was going to run it like people are born, you still have, you either do like in vitro fertilization or you do it the old fashioned way and you have kids. People are going to be human. They're going to, be human. Um, you're not going to put a cortical implant into a child until, they get to a certain level of maturity in their neurons or what have you. Um, and because that could cause development, I was going to argue that it was going to cause developmental issues. So it would be like 16 years of age, you could be uploaded for a certain period of time, but you had to allowed people to make that choice if they want to go full virtual or to stay in a meat pod like myself. So um and there are some people, I'm sure, in this world that would be more than willing to stay in the second verse, and pretty much stream, kind of like what I'm doing now, except there's no body. It's just me. So the other thing I noticed in Traveler was there is a severe lack of entertainment companies. Like, what do people do for fun, right? I found, I think, what was it on the Wikipedia page? No, not Cyberpunk. Was it Cyberpunk? I was looking for like different kinds of companies, and all of them did something. I mean, there was a few media companies, but they all sounded like they just did news. And I was like, well, in the future, you got to have fun, right? So, I mean, there's got to be still movies being made, or there's got to be, children's shows, or there's got to be something. What's Survivor going to look like in the 21st century? So, I was trying to find examples of like 21st or 22nd century entertainment company examples that I could use. But I would assume, MGM, Disney, the like still exist and have, um, still do things. So, um, so yeah, traveler's setting. So there are no aliens currently. Storyline, I want it to run in the same vein as The Expanse. And I am aware that there is an Expanse RPG. I think I may have kickstarted it or have bought it. I just have to read and look through it. But I worried about just borrowing a lot of the stuff from that. What? Meow. Yeah, meow. And samely as The Expanse. Uh, yeah, and then no FTL yet. I actually have spent more than a few man days looking, or person days looking at a conceivable FTL system. Okay, so character and setting, I think I've described that one pretty well. Test combat encounter. Okay. Um, okay, so this is where we're gonna find out how well this works. Um, so let's go read up just for everybody to understand. So there's going to be challenges. So the idea is there's challenges, contests, or conflicts in Fate. Contests are when two or more characters are trying to compete for a goal. You have challenges, which are one or more characters are trying to complete a task. If you've ever played fourth edition D&D, it was like you need to disable the warship. You need to disable the ultimate weapon from happening. So we're going to do a series of skill checks. And if you watch High Rollers D&D, even though they're in fifth edition, they do some of that. And it's like there's going to be a number of checks. And in this case, this challenge may require, the challenge is going to be very similar because everything in Fate can be character, right? So what they say is, we're going to have a track based on that. So let's say the track for that challenge is going to be 6 successes or 6 tracks of things. So, I may have a character and an NPC. So let's say there's 2 of them. My main character and an NPC who's my sidekick or assistant or something. And I have to disable the warship that I'm on from being able to fire its weapons on the research facility. So the idea would be, okay, so this challenge to disable the systems, because I'm an engineer, I should have a pretty good idea on how to make these systems non-functional, either by sabotage or elsewhere. So let's set the scene, right? So I'm on the ship. Faction doesn't matter. But I know that my friends are down on the research station, and we've been told that the main weapon on the ship that is going to destroy the research station is going to take 2 minutes to fire. And I know that this warship has redundant systems, and I know that it's going to take a little time to get done, but I know I have 2 minutes to get it done, and I need to hurry. So I tell my sidekick, hey, I need you to go to XY corridor and do blah, in this case. And the problem, so this this challenge is going to have 5 boxes. The challenge will have 5 boxes. So let me go ahead and just copy these 5 boxes. I'm going to put these down here just for shits and giggles. And this is going to be disable the warship. Or stop, let's just say stop the warship. From destroying the base. And at some point, I'm going to have some nice, NPCs and like challenge boxes and things. Destroying the base. All right. So ideally, how I would have this go is that, so I know that I need to go down to, I know I need to, damage the power systems. Okay. So, we'll treat this like Obi-Wan Kenobi disabling the tractor beam on the Death Star, right? We know from the schematics on the ship there are a couple of places that we can go to get that done, and we need to do it in a couple of minutes. So, I'm just asinine like that. All right, so I am on my way to where the nearest power coupling is, because if I can disable the power, and assuming that we've had like a list of things from kind of like the briefing the X-wing fighters had, we've looked at the schematics of the ship and we understand this, and Syl has said, by disabling these 5 things, we'll completely disable the ship. So we have to do this in 2 minutes. So I need to run to the power coupling, which is in engineering. So but I need to do it stealthily. So I'm going to attempt to stealth my way, or stealth my way into the engineering spaces. What are the odds? So I'm going to say I'm going to run to engineering. Do I make it to engineering? In this case, we can assume that the ship is under attack, not under attack, but it's under like red alert. It is probably bustling with a lot of people, so the stealth roll for this would be somewhat more difficult. I would say probably will take a. It's probably a. Let's see, let me pull that up. Oh yeah, it's on draw board. All right, there it is. All right. So we're going to say it's going to be at, so the likelihood is going to be the difficulty, right? So in this case, it's going to be, let's say a +3. It's going to be a good chance that it's going to be busy and it's going to be difficult for me to sneak in without being seen. So I'm going to look at my stealth roll, or my stealth skill in this case. My stealth skill is, oh good, it's a 0. Okay, well I have to roll a 3 or better to make it. So I'm going to roll. Okay, so first roll is not doing me good, so take the minus and the plus away and take the minus away, and I have a +1. So if I'd had some way to compel a +2 out of that, like let's say I had a stunt, let's say somebody subscribed and they said, oh, you've got a stealth package or something like that. Maybe I picked something up ahead of time. Um, you know, so okay, so this did not go well. This is a -2, so there's a 2 difference. If it had been 3 or better, it would have been like I didn't do really good at all. So let me pull this up again. So, all right, so at a -2, it was just a no. So, no. So, I'm stealthing my way into the engineering space and I'm caught by a technician. The technician says, "What are you doing here?" Um, there's going to be some assumptions here, like I had a uniform or something, but so it'll be like I'm here to run maintenance on the reclamation systems. And that's a deception roll. So I would roll deception. And considering it would have to be, this would be social combat. So let me put these side by side. So it would be a deception roll at +1. Does he believe me? So I would have to say this was probably, let's just call it even odds at this point. All right, so I got a +2 with my deception of +1. I got a 3. So yes, and so he looks at me and he's like, all right, just be quick about it. So he lets me go. I don't have to be escorted or anything. So I'm in the engineering space. I make it in there. I start working on the systems. I know enough to know which consoles I need to go to. And I'm going to look around and see what's going on. So let me do my notice. Question. What would be the question I would ask? I'm in the engineering space. I'm imagining there may be some klaxons going on in the back because it's red alert, and they're about to fire the energy weapon. So, is anybody watching me? So the notice roll. Okay, so it's dead even. So along with my notice of 3, so I got a 3. I don't notice anybody apparently looking at me, and I'm able to make my way over to where the power systems are. All right, scroll back down here to my, all right, so I'm able to operate the computer. The controls are fairly easy because I have technology skill when attempting to access computer systems. I'm going to attempt to compel my stunt and access the computer systems for power-based systems. And I get a +2 to that. Actually, I need to probably I get a +2 for that for technology. All right. I'm going to attempt to shut down the power systems and wipe the controls. So technology would be very similar to what hacking was in the transhumanist state. So I'm going to roll this. All right, so I got a +2 on that along with my 4. Because I had access to, and we're going to assume a lot right now because I haven't started the actual game. I have some way of getting onto the ship, so I had some sort of level of clearance. So um, we could have called the attempt to do this great, because it would have been somewhat noticeable. So I managed with my 4 + 2 to get into the system without being detected and noticed, and was able to disable the power systems. In that case, would be like one of these is done, right? So, um, see, this is where session 0 kind of works in, because I'm like, well, okay. The idea, if I got into combat with somebody, would be, okay, I attack, so the way an attack would happen is if I had talked to that technician and it didn't go well, and he noticed that I'm not a member of whatever faction this was, and he decided he wanted to attack me, I would have to roll against my physique versus his fight skill, which is something I need to do. I need to make some more NPCs. But okay, so if I roll his fight skill, which will denote by the blue, and my fight skill, which is denoted by the green. So he rolled a 0, and with my fight skill is being, or my physique skill is 0, so I rolled a +1. So I have a 1 to his, and let's say his fight skill was a 2 or something. So I took 1 hit physical damage, and nothing bad happened. So then, in terms of initiative order, I would then take over and attack him with my wrench. Say I have a wrench, and he would defend. Let's say he has a, maybe he's a bit of a hulking bastard, so he has a +2 to his physique, and I have a 1 to my fight. So, all right, so his ends up being a 0, so he has a 2, but I ended up with +1 to my, and +1 to my fight, so I ended up with a 2. So it was a push. So when it hits a 0, so we have a complication. So that comes into things like boosts, right? So maybe we're both fighting at it. He blocks, he blocks the wrench with his forearm, so he's, oh God, got a broken arm or something like that. So I may get a plus to my next roll because he can't defend himself with his arm because it's kind of hurt. He got smacked. So, all right. So the next round would go to him, and he's going to try to attack. Now that minus, that minus could be to his attack. Like he knows he can't use his fist. So, he can only use his one fist, and I'm going to attempt to block his attack with my wrench or what have you. So, all right. So this did not fare well for him. He has a -1, and my physique is a 0. So, I actually did better than him. So, let's see, -1. So no, he did not hit me. And we would, role play that out. Okay. Let me slow down for a second here. All right. So he took a swing at me, and I was able to block it with my wrench. So nothing bad happened that round. So I'm going to attempt to hit him. The idea is the physical tracks is more indicative of how well the fight is going, right? So I'm going to attack him. Maybe maybe I need to do something because this is kind of an even fight. Maybe we're both, have the same physique or fight. So I need to figure out ways to create an advantage for myself. I did that last round because I hit him with my wrench, and maybe his arm is hurt and he can't, defend so well with it, or maybe he's got a little pain, so maybe he's being thrown off because of it. So I get a +1 or +2 to being able to do something. So I'm going to fight my green. Oh, look at this. I get a +2 in addition to my fight, which is a 1. And he rolled, so he has +1. We're going to assume that he has +2 to his physique. So he got 3. So between my fight, so I have a 3 and a 3, +2 because he has a broken arm, so his defense is kind of down. Now I've forgotten how many, let me see. So his fight is +2. His physique is +2. All right. And he has a -2 right now to his defense, or his physique because of that. So it pretty much makes him a 0. So his defense, he got a +1. So he has a +1 to his defense. I have a +2 plus my fight, which is 1. So I have a 3. So he has a 1. So I gave him 2 boxes worth of damage. Let's say he has 3 boxes like I have. He took 2 boxes of damage. So he is almost gone and taken out of the game. Now, when all of his hit boxes are gone, that doesn't necessarily mean he's dead. Maybe he's knocked out, or he's just taken out of the battle where he cannot fight and cannot act anymore in that scene. Unlike Dungeons and Dragons, when you hit 0 and you've got death saving throws and all that junk, ideally what this is just to take that person out or to continue with the scene. So maybe I crack him over the head with my wrench and he goes down. So he's completely out and knocked out, and then we work through that. All right, so now it's his turn. He's not feeling too well, and as we know, he has a fight of 2. And the defense that I had earlier would be temporarily gone because boosts are temporary in this case. So he's back up to fighting +2, and I'm up to my fight or my physique of 0. Oh God. Okay, so this is the worst possible result. He rolled 4 minuses. He rolled 4 minuses, but I rolled 2 minuses, so I have a -2. Plus my physique is 0, so he automatically misses, and he suffers a problem. So maybe his forearm still hurt. Maybe he was trying to, use his spanner to hit me, and maybe he hit a bulkhead or something and cracked himself on the head. And he's now been taken out of the battle, right? So he's done. And that gives me the ability to figure out what I should do with him. If I should hide the body, if I should take his uniform, if I should take his access card, what have you, and continue on my way. But I still have 1 armful. Ooh, gross. Yeah, maybe that arm is mechanical, so you're like, Night of the Living Dead kind of shit going up underneath there. But yeah, so the physical track, I haven't figured out if that's going to linger or not, but I would assume that it would linger because that's, I don't like the way Dungeons and Dragons has ever done hit dice, where it's like, oh, I can just, sleep for 8 hours and I've got all of my hit points back. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. I mean, I love the idea of the fantasy stuff, and it's like, oh, cure wounds, boom, or, healing potions, boom. If we ever play a fantasy fate game, the idea of magic potions to heal you would be a great idea, but there's got to be some byproduct of that, like it speeds up your metabolism and you are in a feverish state for the next 3-4 hours where you're completely useless in terms of healing. Your head is off sleep. Well done. Well done, YTT. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so the challenges that they so the challenges they mention here, so they say, is each separate task something that can generate tension and drama independently of the other tasks. like detaching the detonator, stopping the timer, disposing the explosive materials. There does this situation require different skills? So holding off the zombies, pushing down the barricade. So yeah, you'll see some of that. It's like, okay, you need to disable the warship. So I've told my sidekick to go and shut the aft port that has the laser on it or something. And I was like, was he successful? So let's find out. Ideally, it would be dependent on things like what his stealth is. So let's say he stealths, and his stealth is, let's say my sidekick stealth is a +3, and he has he has a uniform which allows him to blend in, which gives him a better chance of running around and looking at things. So let's say he has a +2 because of the uniform. So he has a +5 because he's got a uniform and maybe he has a key card and stuff. So he has a +2 because of his natural stealth and a +2 because of his uniform, because he has a uniform of one of the guards or what have you, or one of the engineering technicians, for instance. So I'll ask, was he able to successfully shut the aft port and disable it? Oh, okay, that's not good. Okay, so 5. You take out the pluses and minuses and negatives. So he has a -2. So he had a 5, so he's down to 3. I would assume because he had the uniform and because he had a key card, he was able to get to the place. And so in this case, he didn't do so bad according to the stats here. So he had a good chance of getting to that place. So yes, he was successful. I see all the negatives and I go completely to the negative, but because he had positives that we had defined beforehand, and obviously in the regular game or when I actually get started on this, we're going to have the ability to prep before this, but so yes, and so he's able to make um, the aft port close. So I have done those things. So I'm able to lock that off. Now, let's say when the power systems went down and that aft port went off, I will ask, did anything happen on the ship of note? Like a klaxon or an additional security issue, because those are big events on the ship. Coming from somebody who does InfoSec, I have a power loss on the ship, and all of a sudden the hatch on the aft port where the spinal weapon is about to shoot from got closed and disabled. So is that going to prompt a bigger a security, security teams head to the aft port, it's been damaged or sabotaged? So we're going to check, and it's a -2. All right, so um that's interesting. No, they did not notice anything. Why? Why was that? Are there backup systems in place that are taking over? And we're going to assume it's a warship, so there are probably backup systems. So I'm going to say it's a good chance. It's a good chance. So I'm going to say it's a +3 difficulty. So it's a +3 difficulty. So yes, there are backup systems and they've come online. So now maybe there's a starboard side weapon with a starboard side port and starboard power couplings that have to be disabled. So I have dispatched the technician that saw me disabling the port systems over here before he could notify anybody. So I need to head over to the starboard power coupling console, maybe in a different engineering space. So, one of the things that I'll need to do is to dispose of the body or hide the body. So was I able to hide the body successfully? I would say, is there a storage locker around that I can put the body in? And we're going to say it's an engineering space. So I would say it's probably a fair chance that that's a thing. God, just sucking here. Oh my God. Okay. So, no, there is not. Um, so let me see. It says complications can be big or small. The point of complication is to make whatever you were going to do the next old news, something that sent your plans awry. Examples of complications could be walking into a bar, seeing your arch nemesis sat with her back to you. Time to buy new dice. Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll try with the blue ones. Uh, so final puzzle likelihood. Okay. So, um, all right. So, okay, there's no storerooms that I can store this body in. Maybe because we've been in battle, I can make it look like I'm trying to take my hurt friend down to sick bay. So I'm going to roll a deception check. I'm going to pick this person up and I'm going to attempt to take them down to um, sick bay. Okay, so I have a deception roll of 1 plus 0. So I have a 1. So in this case, plus 1. Yes, but okay. So yes, I am able to make it look like I'm taking an injured comrade down to sick bay, but maybe I'm discovered in this case. Uh, Maybe somebody noticed us scuffling and there may be security people on the way or something like that. Um, that makes sense. Could be, maybe somebody did see the scuffle. So I ended up dropping that person who was unconscious, and I'm running to try to evade capture on the ship, while at the same time trying to get to the. That sounds plus 0. Well, okay, so it'd be a yes. So I was able to initially maybe get past, but yeah, yeah, you might be right. Um, yeah. Hmm. Complication is it? Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's the yes, but, right? So yes, but. So yes, I was able to um, you know, take him down and maybe I fooled a couple of people, but maybe somebody else realized that or maybe he woke up. So yeah, maybe he woke up in this case. Um, maybe he came to and was like, starting to ask for help. So I dropped him and started running towards the um, uh, starboard side. So, but yeah, so I mean that's kind of what I'm looking at. I need to definitely work on some of this. This is obviously rusty as shit. It's about as rusty as me stepping on a nail that is made of rust. And I'm sweating, so that's not good. That's not a good sign. Uh, so ideally, what we would do is we'll play through that, and you know, my friend was able to disable the port side. I was able to do the port side, but they moved over to the starboard side couplings. We would continue to role play through that and figure out what's up. Let me see what else. Social encounter. Yeah, social encounter. All right, so um, thoughts about the test combat encounter needed a bit more prep. Um, Maybe create a more, maybe create a bit of background. And then the social encounter. So, yeah, so the social encounter would be like where maybe we have, so in this case, it would be, I'm trying to grill a suspect for information, and I'm going to use things like deceive, provoke, intimidate to get what I want. Oh, really don't like how Google does that. So you'll use empathy, deceive, rapport, provoke, and maybe notice. Weber. Weber, like a grill. Um, so in this case, so let's say we're at police headquarters or whatever amounts for corporate security headquarters, and I've apprehended somebody. Oh, grilling. Okay, yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you, YTT. Yes, absolutely correct. Um, in this case, um, I've apprehended somebody, and we're trying to figure out where the terrorist attack will occur. So, this person, let me see. So, in this case, um, I don't know this person. I just happened to find them. So, let's say they have let's see, deceive, rapport, empathy. Let's say they can deceive it +3. Rapport is a 0 because they're not very nice, so they don't have very good rapport. They're kind of shitty. And provoke. Oh yeah, I want to do provoke as a +2, and an empathy. They don't have any empathy. They're assholes. All right, so these are the. Oh, sorry. There we go. Sorry, I forgot. I've got this thing upside down, so everybody has to look at it that way. So, deceive of 3, a rapport of 0, an empathy of 0, and a provoke of 2. So, as you can see, I have mine up here on the board as well. Deceive, empathy, rapport, and provoke. So mine are actually crappier than his. All right. So I begin by asking him a question. It's like, I get a rapport started. I'm like, hey, where I found you at the building where the suspected attack is going to occur. You had electronic materials consistent with bomb making materials or what have you in your pockets, in your backpack, in your pack. Your AI logs are showing that you made a call to these people at this time. I have this information. So, based on this information, I have a +2. I'm going to say, what can you tell me what you know about the bomb. I'm going to use my uh, rapport to kind of get it out of him. Okay, so I roll a +2 with my 1. That's a 3. His deception, which his deceive is going to be, assuming he's not going to be willing to tell me, would be his defense against my rapport in this respect. So he has a 3. He rolled a 4. So he tells me he doesn't know anything. So it's a +1 in this case. So let me pull up. So +1. So grilling said, okay. He's his deception in this case. So let me remove my physical track because this is a different example. So his deception, he says he doesn't know anything. So I'm going to have to use some, let's say I can access computer systems with my technology skills. So I'm going to tell Syl, who is my artificial augment, to interface with his AI and query his AI. And so I get a +2 to my technology skill. I'll use that as a way to query and find out, does he actually know more than he's talking about? So I'm going to roll. God bless. Okay, so I rolled a 4, or a -1 plus my 4 plus my 2. So I got 6 minus 1, so a 5. His deception skill with his own AI is -1. So his deception skill was a 3. So he's a 2. So I, in this case, succeeded with style in this case. So let's say it would have taken me time to break down. So at a +3, yes, and so based on the information from his AI, I am able to discern um, that he was actually there to do something nefarious. Now, further discussion may find that he was there to do something different than create and set the bomb. Um, but as far as he can tell me, and all the information that he knows is that he was, there to do a job. Um, okay. So a couple things that I've learned here today is that it does take a little bit of prep work for examples. Okay. I don't think we should get started because there's a lot I need to work on for this, which may take me a couple weeks. And so, all right. My daughter may be calling me any time now, so I'm going to. I appreciate YTT for you hanging out with me, because this is a bit of a hot mess. I've never actually played solo role playing before, and as the gentleman stated in the PDF for solo role playing, that these are heavily edited, right? So if you ever watched, Easier Solo Role Play, which is the book that I got from him, he said, I'm going to be working through some of this, like creating mind maps for things. I looked at the location crafter that I have for Mythic, and there's a lot there, and I don't know if that's something that I can do as well. Where was it? Yeah, don't judge yourself against professionals. So the biggest one is Critical Role and solo playing Me, Myself, and Die. While it's great to see high production value, careful not to mistake them for real life. The cast Critical Role and our professional actors, and especially in Me, Myself, and Die, are heavily edited. So I'm going to go look at that. Maybe I need to do some of the seer stuff to understand what's going on to kind of help the story along. And yeah, so oh, we got, it's like any other reality show, right? Well, yes, with production values, yes. So I think I'm gonna go, and only because I've learned enough now, and at least in the discussion here, I need to understand like the flow and everything. And I will work on some of that, and figure out what I'm gonna do for next week. I have a rough idea of what I want to do with my character, and how I want it to go, but I definitely need to maybe create that mind map that he mentions here, in terms of, you know, um, building investigations. Um, so you have a victim, the ID is missing. So you create a mind map or a bubble with different information that helps you, create a web of potential. This is Tesla here. Oh, is this yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. But yeah, so there's some things that I probably need to do to read up and make this work a little better. So, um, Lucid Spark. Okay, I actually was using something made out of Java, but I really don't want to do that. Maybe I'll use like a UML document, like draw.io or something like that doesn't require fucking Java to be installed. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. If if any of you are watching this and are like, oh my god, this is sucking, well, I'm on the other end of this, so I completely am feeling that. And I can only say this will get better as we go along. So cool. So YTT, thank you for hanging out with me. Hope you had some fun. And yeah, looking forward to continuing this, because I think it will be fun once I start getting the rhythm down of how to do things, how to make things happen. And this is only as good as everybody who helps out. So if you have thoughts or questions, or maybe you want to help guide the direction, we'll have I'll work on the, oh yes, I want to work on the bits thing as well. So Where's my sheet here? All right, so things left to do. Create support. Delete that. Create bit network support. Okay. There we go. Create support. Create stream support bit ladder, which is like 100 bits for +2 to roll, or other rewards for gameplay. There we go. Just wanted to make sure I had that in there too. So, all right, well, I'm going to go and work on some things and do some research as I am wont to do. Thank you to Neno2000 for following. Security Live, which is another Twitch streamer. Definitely follow Security Live if you can. You know what? Oh, well, it's only one person. And then Mango Fuzzing. Mango Fuzzing was the handle. And I believe Mango Fuzzing was our 400th follower. So that's pretty cool. We have 400 followers. So, all right. Well, I'm going to go. Thank you all for being here and watching this and putting up with me. If you have played Solar games before, I'd love to get some insight from you. So please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or Mastodon, or email me, bds.podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you put in the subject like, hey, Solar Gaming or something like that. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.